Gray mist threads the thin field. A gull laughs the way gulls always do when men try to be serious. The brazier sits upside down by order, iron belly cold as proof. Rushes darken the path to the oath stone. The speaker stone wears yesterday's breath on its face. You are the newest hand on oath watch. Stake bag at your hip, bench cord in your fist, the silver ring heavy on its strap, a tally stick tucked against your slate, and a thumb gone ochre red from painting rules on people who want exceptions. Orders are plain because their consequences aren't. Peg a straight lane from speaker stone to witness bench. Face the oath stone into the wind. Let the day take the heat out of mouths. Hang the board, oaths, not ordeal. And in new paint the law speaker made you grind yourself. The latest ban. No trial by pain breath before iron. A farm boy mutters for courage. Fire bites truer than mouths. The law speaker lifts his staff and points it at a chieftain who swore alone last month and then bragged over ale about good friends in low places. Make the breath matter, he says. If he swears alone, make him prove he has no one to name. You chalk the first ring and lift the oath ring into daylight. The silver looks like a rule that remembers hands. Peg taps, tap tap, turn, tap. The cord snakes under your palm, willing to be decoration unless you make it a boundary. You give it a new story. Straight seam from claim spot to stone, shallow arc where the rush bed dips, firm step before the bench so compurgators can stand palms out without wobble. Cord too near and pride cheats. Men lean into the law and confuse breath with heat. Cord too far and courage spills into noise. The oath becomes a shout. Either way, the seam must be up before the hush horn breathes speak. Staller. A housecarl rams a peg with his palm where the plinth wants to slide. You set heel against socket, face the stone into the wind, and stamp a solid tread from claim spot to oath stone so nobody blames mud for a stammer. You draw 2 chalk rings, one at 2 paces for mouths that think volume is weight, one tight to the plinth for hands that need somewhere to stop. The ring strap creaks, a goat noses it as if silver were grass. You flick the leather and tie it higher. Down, you sign to the goat's boy. He tugs the rope and grins like someone entrusted with a law small enough to own. You hang the wording board where cloaks must brush it. Oaths, not ordeal in red ochre, the color of consequence. Below, small law hand, name ladder, 3/6, 12. False alone equal to fine, named friends equal to bound to this hill. No trial by pain, breath before iron. The gull laughs again, and you choose to hear it as agreement. Hidden worlds ride under your bracers. Last winter's nid list, barred oaths about mothers and graves, no swearing by children's bellies, no god traps you wouldn't dare in a storm. A spare sack of clean rags for palms that sweat when breath gets heavy. Hand signs, 2 fingers down, step, flat palm, hold, fist low, down. Pocket drill for a spine about to disgrace a mouth, set feet, breathe, swear. In the wax board chest, the Godar keep the old forms. Compurgation ladders scored in runes, worn by use in argument. The hush horn lifts its soft note. The law speaker's staff raps once on the board, measure kept. First claimant steps to the outer ring and mutters, burns tell truer than mouths. Your mint leaf finds his lips before the sentence finds its ending. Breath, you tell his eyes. Then name. He sees the ladder chalked on the board and swallows. A defender looks at the sea and counts waves instead of friends. The law speaker makes the ring knock the stone twice and says, alone then? Name any who egged you. If none, own the winter it was only you. The ring looks heavier than iron. You log without theater, oath 1 claim, nets torn names given, 0 fine, 1 vinegar. Beside it you scratch fall arrests, 1 goat, and feel better than you should when the tally looks clean. The chieftain, the staff, pointed to strolls near the seam, softer than a cat, smile like an apology written on silk. He watches the compurgators plant their boots, 3 first, 6 for heavier corals, 12 for matters that stain seasons. He measures the gap between his mouth and the bench and discovers it is longer than rumor. You plumb the rail again, a thumb's breadth this time. The law speaker's eye rests on your cord hand and does not move. Permission is a look that doesn't need to become a word. A page with linen cuffs too clean lifts a fallen feather and pretends it is a question. You return it to his hand without moving your mouth. The first naming comes from a man who wasn't planning to confess. He says, "I swear alone with heat," then glances at the bench and blinks because this hill has just made alone mean own it. "Name them," the law speaker says, palm hinging over the ring. The man inhales, falters, and points without meaning to. 3 names drop like stones into a quiet that was built for them. The compurgator's eyes move. 2 men stand palms out. A third looks at the sea. You mark the board, names given, 3. The gull stops laughing. A housecarl ties the ring strap higher. The goat learns the lesson it was brought for. Some circles are not toys. You count fall arrests with your thumb, 1, 2, and catch the third with a hand sign. Hold. The boy at the edge of the seam steadies his breath against your sleeve. Set feet, you whisper to his chest. Breathe, swear. Facts become sounds. Peg taps. Ring thud on stone. Red ochre drying. Hush horn's soft request. Staff raps small thunder. Witness staves knocking the ground as palms lift. The wind carrying oaths away so men cannot chase them back into their mouths. You jot the ladder where boys can reach it and men must read it. 3 names, light. 6, heavy. 12, stone. Under, water oath, drank no false word. You scratch a small fish beside it for the old men who like pictures more than runes. If it were your hill, if a boy said fire bites truer than mouths and a chieftain smiled like a cat, how close would you string the cord, nearer for bite or wider for safety? Put your vote and where you're watching from below. I read them when the pounce dust washes from my fingers and the hush horn asks whether the cord belongs on the rushes again. You pace the seam once more. Pegs sit like tame teeth. The cord holds without being pulled. The board says oaths, not ordeal in letters boots can't ignore. The ring is warm from hands, not iron. The law speaker's staff raps twice. Measure kept. The gull laughs somewhere else. The day will argue about nets and goats and names. Your job was to make breath do the work and to make alone mean what it says. Dew stitches the field into one cold skin. The hush cord is colder. Pegs knock a little tune your wrist knows by heart. Routine is the law that lets courage stay civil. Before sun, peg the lane. Tap tap, turn, tap. Run the cord true. No swales for pride to pool in. No proud humps for stories to trip over. Warm the ring strap between your palms until the leather remembers obedience. Repaint the knotwork where hands and weather ate the red. Chalk 2 rings at the stone. 1 at 2 paces for mouths that think volume is weight. 1 tight to the plinth for hands that need a place to stop. At the horn, claimant speaks, defender swears, hush. At the tally read, post the witness count on the board where boots must see it to sit, then pace to the surety bench. How many boots stand behind each breath? How much barley behind each name? At lull, swap a worn strap for waxed, Saturday slack is dead, dry strap first keeps hands from blaming weather for their tremble, wipe the ring with a rag. Fold your nid list away so no one thinks the law is shopping for shame. You draft the rota in neat chalk. Ring minders forward a hand to turn leather, a hand to hold silence. Hush staffs to seams 1 per. Reserves to widen the rear bench when the crowd swells and stories try to. Your job sits on your knuckles, set the swearing sequence. Tie colored threads to witness staves where a glance will do the work of a speech. White for 3 men oath. Blue for 12-hand oath. Yellow for water oath. Drank no false word. Your ledger opens and learns 4 verbs again. Pegged, sworn, hushed, set by. The law speaker's stylus whispers them into wax as if numbers were talismans. Peg taps, chord hum. The horn peels its low mark. Breath before words, the note that gives order a spine. Ring thud on stone follows. The plinth answers like a drum that belongs to a hill. The day pretends it is learned. It isn't. Today's novelty is the naming oath. If a man swears alone, the law speaker may bid him name any who egged him on. Name none and you confess to solitary intent. Name some and the ring binds them to this hill. Either way, the tide of cases won't wait. An ink pot tips across your surety board because someone colored their outrage too hard. You jam your wrist under the flood and save the line that counts. Boots in person, barley in sacks, names who stood, names who sent coin instead of feet. 3 strokes drown, your head writes them back while your hand blots and your mouth moves 2 benches with finger signs. Step, hold, down. So the cord stays an idea instead of a rope. 2 benches swap places. Habit outruns instruction. You redress the ring in shadow while a lantern crawls closer, half files trade, a sleeve tug, a palm down. The cord remains true. The hush keeps pretending it planned this. The horn peals again. The staff raps once for measure kept and twice when a laugh tries to become a rule. The caller reads in a voice built of pounce and patience. Evend, claimant. White thread glows on the first 3 staves. 3 men step into the chalk with palms out. Thorolf, defender. He lays his hand through the ring and tries to make volume into truth. You hold up your palm, hold, and point to the glass. He counts barley instead of goats. He survives his own mouth. The law speaker sets his palm over the ring's mouth. Alone you swore last tide, he says, and then you drank. If alone again, name none. If egged, name those who egged you. The ring's shadow crosses Thorolf's wrist like a question. He flinches when the demand turns his boast into a net. Names tug at his tongue. 1 drops, then another, then a third, like stones into a well you know is shallow. You mark the board without theater. Oath 2 names given, 3 sureties called. A murmur rises. The hush staff raps once, and the murmur remembers it is a seam, not a river. The compurgation ladder waits beside the bands, carved into the plank where boys can reach it and men must read it. 3 names, light 6 heavy 12 stone. Under it, water oath yellow, drank no false word. You rub wax into the strap again and hang the yellow thread on the nearest stave. Dry strap first, you tell the boy sent to fetch the bowl. He nods like someone newly hired by gravity. Facts become sounds. Ring thud on stone. Wax on leather. Sand glass hiss. Hush horns low request. Staff rap small thunder. Witness staves knocking earth. The law speaker's voice reduced to scaffold. Formulae keyed to gods, kin, and witnesses. Pheleg boter compensation for false swearing, scratched in the margin so nobody can pretend they forgot what a lie costs when it breaks. A friar palms you a chit from the alderman, wax attempting to make favor into law. Opened by order, the face lies. Let Thorolf stand near a cord, the whisper means. You put it in the drawer that kills paper gently and tie a yellow thread round the nearest reed as a private joke your conscience approves. You count witnesses without shaming poor men. It is an art. Ask who will stand, rather than who can afford to. Post boots in person without reading aloud, boots with holes. Chalk barley sacks beside wealthy names and pairs of hands beside the rest. Nobody walks home believing the hill made sport of them. There is a second, secret slate in your coat. 3 chiefs who never stand the water oath. You erase 1 name because last night he took yellow without making you hunt him. The other 2 you carry into tomorrow like a thorn you intend to pluck when you've earned the grip. A defender falters when the law speaker says, name them. His eyes go to the sea, to the ring, to the space where a compurgator might have stood and didn't. He says, none, and the word lands like an axe in dry wood. Alone. You draw a thin line on the slate and feel the weight settle. Solitary intent is a kind of confession the hill cannot afford to ignore. The ring knocks once for enough. At the tally read you post witness count and paste to the surety bench. Boots in person, Asgrim, Ethel, Gurney. Barley pledged, 2 sacks from Joran if Thorolf's mouth breaks. Willow bark from your spare sack goes to a strained throat. The law is not obliged to be cruel, it just refuses to be loud. If the provost wanted inside the cord to quiet rumor, would you let him, inside inspection, or keep him threshold only? Put your vote in where you're watching from below. I count them when the pounce dust washes from my fingers, and the hush cord asks whether it belongs on the rushes again. By mid-morning, the routine has trained the hill. Pegs sit like tame teeth. The cord hums with attention, not appetite. The ring warms from hands, not iron. The board says oaths, not ordeal in letters boots cannot ignore. You scrawl your 4 verbs 1 last time. Pegged, sworn, hushed, set by. And look down the quiet seam you chalked at first light. Men carry their breath to the stone like a thing they're proud of not spilling. Names drop where chalk told them to. The day decides to behave. Frost tight as hide. thaw waking underfoot. The cord in your hand remembers the night. Your thumb convinces it to be morning. You thumb wax into a stiff strap until the leather stops arguing. You tease a quill clean along your penknife's back until the slit sighs into duty. The ink in the horn sulks. Your palm warms the pewter. It relents. Routine first, spectacle never. At the rope, a fence-sitter with a fishmonger's voice sings his canard. Captains swear warm against the ring. Fathers freeze at the far peg. He tries it 3 ways to see which buys him nods. The warden doesn't argue. He lays his palm on the hush cord like a lid and pitches the day's order in 5 strokes. Move the cord where all can see. First oath at the novice lane. Chalk the board. Firm here, danger there. Hang no trial by pain where boots must see it, and mind the strap. From the chapel door the sacrist adds what your shoulders already know. No clatter. Mass. You answer with your heels. Hush cord, ringstone, surety bench. Back and forth until the rushes decide they are being watched. You peg where frost stayed loyal. Ease where the thaw began to lie. Stamp the seam with your heel so the first boot won't be surprised. You pull the cord out in a shallow arc and pin it straight while everyone looks. Geometry calms men faster than speeches. Rosemary floats in the hand bowl for palms that will shake. You set it where eyes can believe in it without your help. Then the choice that buys you critics either way. Post the seam first, clean, visible arithmetic, and men cry favoritism. See, captains get firm straw by the stone. Fathers get slick rush by the door. Post the rotation first, needier fare, and the captain fumes. You're teaching people their place matters more than their form. You pick the sequence you can defend without a paragraph. Path first, promise second. Cord moved where all saw your knuckles. Rotation posted where boots must see it to stand. Novice lane first, white 3-hand to near seam 2, blue 12-hand to seam 3, yellow water oath last. Above it, where souls read sooner than eyes, you chalk firm here over the crib patch you mended at dawn, and danger there over the churned place by the door. Beside both you hang the ban, no trial by pain breath before iron. A clerk from the steward's table arrives with a rota torn down the spine by a thumb that wanted to be a palm. Paste, thread, the little iron he keeps under his cuff against 6 rules and a superstition. You hold the corner while he stitches the day back together. The iron thinks about performing. The sacrist glances over. No clatter, he breathes. The iron learns to whisper. The hush horn peals its low mark. Peg taps quiet themselves. The warden keeps his hand on the rope but does not pull. He lends it patience, not weight. The herald's trumpet cuts the rising talk into pieces too small to hire. Somewhere along the seam a husband's pride is already halfway to his hand. You chalk a ring by his heel and give him a place to plant the other one. The caller reads in a voice built of pounce and patience. Evind, claimant. First oath at the novice lane holds. A boy in the outer ring sags at the hush, breath running ahead of tongue. You steady him with a shoulder tap and the quiet drill you carry for moments like this. Set feet, breathe, count. He counts barley instead of goats. He survives his own chest. Thorolf, defender. He lays his hand through the ring and tries to make volume into truth. You lift your palm, hold, and point to the glass. He counts instead of roaring. When he reaches 7, the law speaker hinges his palm over the ring. Alone, you swore last tide, he says, and then you drank. If alone again, name none. If egged, name those who egged you. The naming oath is a machine built for quiet. It doesn't bite skin. It turns brag into map. It spreads like water under planks because men use names to warm their stories at table. Thorolf flinches when the demand turns his boast into a net. Names tug at his tongue. One drops, then another, then a third like stones into a well you know is shallow. The hush staff raps once. The murmur remembers it is a seam, not a river. The ring knocks thrice for enough, the old signal that means the hill has what it came for and the rest belongs to barley and boots. You pace to the surety bench and chalk what the hill will spend to keep its promise. Boots in person, Asgrim, Ethel, Gyrni. Barley, 2 sacks, Joran if breath breaks. You count witnesses without shaming poor men. White threads go beside the hands that will stand, not the purses that won't. A compurgator's refusal stains him less than a false witness's tongue. You write the names of those who stood and leave blank the line where a man bent his stare at the sea until it pretended to be a friend. You cradle spare ring rags under canvas because sweat is honest and you don't have to make a sermon of it. Under your ribs the second slate warms, 3 chiefs who never touched the yellow stave. You erase one name. Last night he took water without making you hunt him. The other 2 you carry into tomorrow like a thorn you mean to earn the grip to pull. The cellarer hisses move at a knot of shoulders that thought they were a conversation. The council bell lifts a hush even gulls respect. The board collects its ticks. The ban hangs where boots must read it to pass. The ring strap sits dry against leather because you made it so. The naming trap has sprung without theater and done its work, a boast turned into a map, a plot shown its own edges by a circle of chalk and a demand for nouns. Hidden craft shows itself if you know where to look, oath phrases that ask for egged rather than helped, so men who would never call themselves accomplices still hand over the thread. Mercy narrow as a strap for a first-timer who names and then stands where he pointed. Coldness wide as the plinth for a man who names and does nothing. A ladder scratched where boys can touch it and men must count it. The law likes to say firm here and danger there because beware is a song and songs take too long. If it were your hour, if the warden ordered demonstration without spectacle, what posts first, cord first or rotation first? Put it and where you're watching from below. I count them when the pounce dust washes from my fingers and the hush cord asks whether it belongs on the rushes again. By mid-morning the proof looks like furniture. Cord where all saw you move it. Novice lane first. Blue staves hung last and honest. The board says firm here, danger there, and nobody pretends not to read. The horn peals mark, the staff raps measure. Men carry their breath to the stone like a thing they are proud of not spilling. Names drop where chalk told them to. The hill decides to behave. Torches gutter and make the hall look narrower, meaner. Gates bar with that elbow-deep clunk that ends the day whether anyone agrees. Word walks past the rope anyway, and hires itself a chorus. Blind oaths. Favored ring. The square likes a rhyme when it thinks it was cheated of a nearer plinth. Inside, the hall meets by candle to do what halls are for, turn mockery into policy. The law speaker has you scratch a new line where sleeves must brush it to pass. All oaths before the board bans, no pain, no god traps, no mother oaths novice bench, first post, ranges, wind, and water oath hour a T dawn. Your beetle plants the scribe's stick on your plank, copy fair. You do. Pounce sighing over the wet as sand drinks ink back to mat. The gulls outside try to thread their laughter into the window gap. You pretend the bell in their throats means yes. Flame blooms in the woodshed, a bad idea's true shape. You and 2 boys are already moving. Bucket, bucket, bucket. Wet wool hisses on the coals and then outshouts the jeers. Steam smells like rosemary and discipline. By the time anyone thinks to be angry, the ember is a puddle and your sleeves are heavier than someone's argument. Back at the plank, a palm that does not belong on your table lands a coin that wants to be a command. A miller's widow, braids wet, lip dry, lays her only round on the wood. It rings dull. 5 words different, she says. Save the seed from oath. Not loud, truer than the chorus outside. The beetle leans in for his sacred cough, always on the line that will cost him friends. The beetle coughs the way officials are trained to disapprove. You keep the S steady as if dignity lives in curves. The law speaker watches the shape your wrist makes and does not stop you. Permission is a silence that will sign its name later. Under the guest stare, a trap yawns for coins and denials. Men step down with private purses and come up with lighter pockets and better stories. Extra pegs, extra staves. The porter's hand hesitates over the cellaret when you lift the hatch and count stock against slate. 2 pegs gone than posted. 3 tokens fewer than sworn. You close the hatch on your own face. Make it wood, the cellarer says behind you, not to you. To the idea that nails can pin down habits. Tomorrow there will be boards where bottles are. Then the choice that does not live in any handbook. A margin note, keep this quiet, slides into your field of view with the practiced innocence of a profitable sin. It wants you to move a chief's cousin off the near ring rotation, while men whisper about what he swore by sail and oar. You can erase or obey, unlock or relock, decide whether the cord is for names or only for strangers. You put the chit under your palm. Paper remembers to fear weight before it fears God. Omit, your bone tells your nerve. Mercy is not a market. The law can honor a widow without becoming her shop. Suspense adjusts its cloak behind your shoulders. If the jeers are not answered, the outer bar will try to be a song. If you answer wrong, your name goes on a to-be-silenced slate men keep oiled for folk like you. The city is about to learn that your handwriting is where mercy lives and where their dues go. You breathe rosemary because the hour needs help. Facts are a heap you must make into a road. Tallies of peg amercements line up, pitiless as teeth. Recognizances with awkward crosses shiver into the docket, some firm, some sideways, some by hands that prefer rope to quill. Key rings stacked like teeth chatter when the cartwheel squeals and then purrs after someone shames it with grease. A drum gives your posted notice a spine and gives the square an ending for its rhyme. You scratch the oath ladder beside the ban, child high, 3 names light, 6 heavy, 12 stone. Below it, a fish and a barley ear for the old and the tired. Firm here, danger there you chalk under 2 seams because the law prefers geography to sermons. Beware breeds theater, firm here buys boots. The astrologer shoulders in smelling of lamp smoke, and permission he did not earn. Lucky hour, he opines, and nudges it forward with his thumb when clouds thicken. Nobody pays him. He pretends the sky did. You carry the posted sheet to the bar, while the outer bar leans for its own reasons. You read because policy grows up when it hears itself. Quiet passage to and from the cord. Alms fines for broken pegs and barred toasts. Novice bench first. Ranges, wind, and water oath at dawn. Seeds spared from oath in frost or famine. Drum under the words. Rosemary and vinegar steam rising behind them. The cartwheel concedes to grease, and the coins in the ladle sound like discipline finding its purse. Now the contested name. Warm in your pocket like a small stove. A cousin of a chief with an expensive grin expects the near-ring rhoda-like inheritance. He does not belong there. Another name does, the miller's widow whose coin bought a sentence and a winter of bread, the boy whose 7 counts steadied 3 rails today, erase or obey, unlock or relock. You lay the bad name on the plank over the rosemary sprig and let friction pretend to be fate. You set him aside. You write the other in a hand the city has learned to trust and punish. Your handwriting is not innocent. It was never meant to be. Hidden economy thrums under all of this. The paid erasure, the bought rhoda, the whisper that waylays a place card. You honor the mercy without making it a market by posting the reason beside the rule. Seed spared in weather, not in favor. Novice first because practice buys peace. You protect yourself the only way a clerk can, with a signed rota pinned where rage and rank can both read it and find themselves measured. If this were your plank, if a sister's coin rang dull under your sand, if a patron's slip asked your margin to forget itself, if a name in your pocket insisted on warmth it hadn't earned, what do you write, omit, or obey? Put it and where you're watching from below. I count them when the pounce dust washes from my fingers, and the hush chord asks whether it belongs on the rushes again. You knot the notice where the drum can keep it company. You file the coin in the only dish tonight where money will behave. You file the chits in the drawer that kills them softly. You leave the contested name where rosemary can keep it from sticking to your hand again. You bank the brazier, torches gutter, gates bar. The hall smells like ink that decided to be honest and smoke that learned restraint. Outside, a city is learning a new rhyme. Fewer words, more work. And you, with cord and ring and a pot of red, have taught a boast to draw its own map. Dawn pegs itself to the rope. Trumpets wet their lips. Drums remember yesterday's beat and loan it to a square that hasn't earned music yet. The velvet voice climbs its crate by the buttery bar and nails the hour to the cord. His grace commends those who kept quiet order at the cord and board. Ranges are chalked because a bargain in ink said they must be. Windows stand open not from virtue but because a rule learned how to turn air into policy. The brazier glows the way a good tool glows, only because the order allowed it. not because anyone needs to admire it. The market man's newest myth blows downwind. A midwife's lintel wears yellow, not red. Someone wrote the exception, and someone else obeyed it. At the levee board, names begin to bud where pride and debt keep their appointment. You take the snowfall of duplicates to the sheriff, the captain, the guild, paper that settles dust without washing blood. You finally grasp what the naming oath bought. Not theater, but obedience. Not glory, but lanes that move, bellies steady, benches that empty on time. Your errands carry edges. You are final witness and courier of consequences. First packet to the sheriff, quiet passage to and from the cord, alms fines for broken pegs and barred toasts, novice bench first, ranges, wind, water oath hour at dawn. He signs with a letter that doesn't blush and gives you the small look you've been earning all week. I saw. Second to the captain, the dry rhoda, the seam stitched by the clerk's little iron, the tally, oaths taken, names given, strays arrested. Arithmetic she prefers to adjectives. She nods and spares you both a speech. Third to the guild, hung where money pretends to learn manners, a drift of paper that keeps a portcullis from being a policy. Then your coat reminds you it has a drawer, the secret slate of spared turns. 3 men you did not bring to the ring because 7 breaths and posted bands were not enough to keep blood from learning old songs. The side list of chords you tightened against orders in the dark hour when thaw lied under frost and sense outranked command. Leak, burn, or file. You hold both like hot bread. Leak would be honest and brief, you would be too. It would splash in the yard like a good sin and die when nobody could afford to adopt it. Burn would be quick and teach you nothing but how to run colder. File is the story this corner survives by. Proof where questions with hats can find it. Nowhere near mouths with errands. You slide slate and list into the drawer under the ledger and listen for the click that promises a better hour will be allowed to ask you why. File. The steward finds you in the draft. He offers a badge to mark more wisely, as if clarity were a party trick you refuse to perform. The guildmaster occupies the shade near your shoulder and offers a quiet attic till the pest passes, the sort of dangerous kindness that fits under a cloak. The sheriff passes and gives you what he does best in your direction, not nothing, not much. I saw. You answer all 3 with what you own. Keys, cord, brazier, silence. Hear your wrists say. You keep your post. Public reading by the bar begins again, because velvet likes 3s. The drum puts a spine under the notice. The sacrist rubs his palm along the chapel door and decides the wood can keep quiet without supervision. The captain's clerk flits in to finger the knot on the rhoda, decides it will hold and vanishes before the market man can hire his breath. You scratch the oath ladder, low where boys can touch it, and high enough that men must read it. 3 light, 6 heavy, 12 stone, under it a barley ear and a fish for the ones who do better with pictures than lines. A parchment-marked misadventure goes into the docket for a slip at wet flags, a lie with a warm heart that keeps the morning cheap. Chests of fines clunk into carts, vinegar coins clink in ladles, key rings stacked like teeth chatter when a wheel squeals and then concedes to grease. One last rosemary bundle goes to ash, a priest watches it die and decides to respect devices publicly for a week. If you had to choose, soft under a patron's livery or hard under sanctuary eaves, which keeps you whole? Livery or sanctuary? Put it, and where you're watching from below, I count them after the pounce dust leaves my fingers, and the cord asks whether it belongs on the rushes again. By noon, the extracts have turned into furniture. People lean on them and forget when paper had to prove itself. The levee clerk keeps his line moving without explaining his face. The market man tests a fresh myth and discovers grief has better ears than appetite. The board holds, the cord stays true, the ring warms from hands, not iron. The line breathes without you needing to give it a mouth. Justice this week was airflow and cord budget. Mercy was policy, not indulgence. Survival was choreography of chalk, pegs, breath, ring, and staves, performed by people who don't need to be sung about to do it again. A law turned a boast into a map of a plot, and you, the hinge, let a city turn without grinding. You coil the slack, you pocket the keys, you bank the brazier. The horn will say speak, the bell will say answer, and the cord will mean wait. The tide will keep its bargain if you keep yours.